This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. The Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its meeting held on January 8, 2013. The meeting set forth the schedule of its regular meetings, which resolution was within 7 days of passage. The schedule was sent to the Verona Seagrove Times, the Star Ledger, the Herald News, the Township of Verona, and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted in each of Verona's 6 schools, the board office, and town hall. This posting was also sent to the above newspapers, all SEA presidents, and SEA liaisons. The Verona Board of Education operates under consent agenda format, and the board member has a right to have an item pulled to be voted upon or discussed separately. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public present. Mr. Quattro, Mrs. Blah, Mr. Elliott,
Here.
Mr. Polino,
Here.
Mr. Enos.
Here. Good evening and welcome. We'll kick off with public comment. Does anyone have a comment on any of our agenda items? Okay. Now I would like to invite Liz up to do her presentation on our curriculum update.
Thank you. Good evening. Myself, my supervisor of the supervisor of humanities, not my supervisor of humanities. I'm very possessive of my supervisory team. The supervisor of humanities, Dr. Sumit Banjia, and the supervisor of math and science, Dr. Nicole Santora, are here with me this evening to present our semi-annual curriculum update. We will talk a little bit about some of what you see on here will be what you saw in the fall, where we laid out our areas of focus for the year. And we'll discuss our progress on those. And then we will also close the presentation by outlining what our areas of focus will be for 2013 and 14. So we'll go over our current framework, our progress on our current initiatives, and our plans for next year. This is just a snapshot. I always include this in every presentation of our current strategic plan, which we are in year 5 of. We are actually in the final stages of developing our next strategic plan. But I always include this just because this really is the guide map. I know I don't expect you to be able to read that on the screen. It is available obviously on the district website. But we always refer back to our strategic plan and the goals we set to serve as a guidepost for our curricular initiatives. And some of these things have been altered a little bit along the way based on needs of the district. But we do always look back to our strategic plan to make sure that all of our goals and our initiatives are part of a cohesive plan. This is a slide I've used before as well. That just really summarizes our curriculum framework and the 4 interrelated components of it that we constantly refer to that serve as the foundation for all of our initiatives. They are all interrelated and all impact each other, and some of them we have more leeway in regard to than others. For example, mandated standards. We recently have now had the implementation of the Common Core State Standards for literacy and for mathematics. We still have the New Jersey Core Curriculum Content Standards for our other subjects. And we're looking at national standards as well for science. So those are, we have very little leeway in terms of implementing those standards, but what our goal is to get to a point where those standards are our minimum benchmark. Right now, we're having to do a lot of work because the structure of the Common Core has shifted things from certain grade levels down to other grade levels. It seems like a reach right now in terms of achieving them, but the goal is that those will just be our minimum standards that are incorporated into every class and that we will seek to achieve above them. Then we get to our actual curriculum and instruction, which is obviously based on the standards. We utilize the Understanding by Design framework. We have our curriculum scope and sequence documents on the website. How do we evaluate our progress? We look at our student performance data, and I've presented on that to you before as well, and we do have presentations in regards to that on our website, and we constantly have the teachers reflecting on student performance, and that is actually something that is going to be a priority over the next couple of years. Now that we have updated the curriculum and put these programs in place, we are still seeking ways to evaluate our implementation of it. And the state standardized tests are one gauge, as are the SATs and the AP tests, but we also need some valid in-district assessments, common assessments, and that's what the teachers have been working on developing, and we've made tremendous strides in regard to that as well. We have our action plans, which you'll look at tonight in terms of how we actually implement all of this. So if we're going to implement a new program, if we're going to revise curriculum, what our professional development looks like for the teachers, and it's really an interrelated cycle of all 4 of these components. One of the things too in terms of the data, and we've said this before, by the time the state presents the data and presents the school report card, it's data that we told you about a year ago. So the data that came out from the state recently is data that we actually talked about at last summer and fall in terms of how our school is doing. And rather than just looking at proficiency or advanced proficiency or partial proficiency, we look at it at a much more granular, difficult word for me to say tonight, level, in terms of looking at the clusters and how students do with regard to the clusters in each of the, let me skip up to that, in each of the subjects. So for example, for math, I just put up here for NJS, which is pretty much the same as HESPA and same for language arts literacy. Math is a very broad topic. It's divided into 5 clusters, and what we have done is we've looked at those to identify patterns. And we look specifically with regard to grade levels, with regard to schools. Some of the things we have looked at, for example, in language arts, you have your writing and your reading portions. Our writing scores have gone up for the past 2 years in a row in grades 3 and 4. And in fact, a couple of our schools are above our district factor group, into which we consider a lot of our peer schools are above the DFG in writing. And while the first year that happened, we didn't want to immediately attribute it to writing workshop because we weren't confident enough to say that, but the fact that it has now happened 2 years in a row, specifically in the writing areas, in those grade levels where we have implemented it and they've made tremendous strides, it's obvious that the teacher implementation of the programs is making a difference. We also have, in terms of the math, we have some schools that perform better and some groups of students that do better with the geometry and problem solving, and some grade levels that do better with different clusters. So we look at that to see, okay, are there holes in the curriculum, or something as simple as when we looked at it and realized that the data analysis and probability piece we weren't scoring as well on. That's because we were teaching it too late in the year and it wasn't getting done until after the test. So what we did now is we've broken it up so that it's infused into the units throughout the year. So things like that we really take a look at to try and figure out what are the specific action items we need to put in place to really, not that the test scores are our end result, but they're an indicator of how we're doing. And if it's something as simple as we're not teaching them something in time to know before taking the test, that's an easy adjustment to make. So these 2 slides you saw in the fall, and these just highlight what our curricular areas of focus are this year. Because while we are constantly working with all the departments and all the subject areas, obviously we do need to prioritize certain components. And any of you who have been coming to board meetings over the past couple of years know that reading, writing, and math have really been our main priorities over the past couple of years, because those are the subjects that everything else stems from. So reading K through 12, this actually initially in the fall said reading grades 3 and 4 because those are the 2 grade levels at which we implemented reading workshop this year. But as Dr. Banji and I were discussing, we realized that we really have been working on reading across all grade levels as a result of the Common Core standards calling for an infusion of literacy in all subjects and all grade levels. So we've done some work with reading workshop, and each of these items, Dr. Banji and Dr. Santoro will actually get up and speak about. There will be a slide on each of those in terms of what we've done. So I'm just going to briefly highlight them, and they will speak in more detail. In terms of the K-12 piece with reading, we've infused much more nonfiction. Writing grades K to 6, we've implemented writing workshop in all of those grade levels. Math grades 5 through 8, we are working on we've actually just completed the curriculum redesign for those grade levels as the Common Core is cycling in to implementation. Science grades K through 12, we're starting to look at the national science standards. Dr. Santoro has done a lot of work with the science department on that, as it is likely that New Jersey is going to adopt the national science standards. In-house assessments, I have that as in process instead of checked off as being done, because that is something that we are continuously working on, and that is really coming into play much more as well with regard to the new teacher evaluation system, where we do have to tie student performance to teacher performance. We were working on expanding our course selection options for high school students, and that will continue into next year. And obviously world language, we talked last year, we expanded Mandarin to Lanning, so we'll talk a little bit about the status of that as well. I already spoke about this. So now I'm going to ask Dr. Banji to come up to speak a little bit about her action items.
It's always so nice being so short. You gotta make sure that mic goes down a little further. Good evening. As Liz pointed out, one of the major changes that we had with respect to reading this year was introduction of the Common Core. And the major focus was informational type of reading. As you notice from this chart over here, you'll notice that by the time a child graduates high school, 70% of the reading they do across the grade, their classes should be informational based. Now, a common myth that's out there currently is that 70% is not inclusive only in their English class. That 70% is supposed to be across their subjects. And as Liz put out before, that literacy is going to be incorporated in their science classes, their social studies classes, and their tech classes. And that's going to be a major shift that we started to do across different disciplines. Now, with regard to what did we actually do within the district? As Ms. Ju pointed out earlier, we actually implemented reading workshop for the first time in grades 3 and 4. And it has been a great success as far as providing students with an opportunity to read at their own personal reading levels. We are looking to expand reading workshop to grades K to 2 starting next year, and we are currently in the process of working with the reading consultant as well as providing the teachers with the necessary training as well as resources to ready this change in September 2013. We're currently looking at purchasing some level libraries so that the students are provided with the necessary materials to do so. As you move up in the grade levels, one of the ways in which we start to expand the informational text reading in our classrooms was through the use of periodicals. What we started to purchase for students, on average starting from grade 5, are such periodicals such as New York Times, Upfront, Scope, National Geographic. Also, newspapers have increasingly been part of the curriculum, such as the New York Times. And a big thing that we've pushed from the upper middle school grade level, starting grade 7, all through the high school, is the use of primary sources. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more through what we use called the DBQ.
One note, just in case you're having trouble seeing the screen, this will be posted online on our website in the morning. It'll be on the district homepage, as well as on a page on my site that has all the presentation. So just if you want more information.
Now, with respect to writing, our core focus has been grades K to 6 with implementation of the writing workshop. Similar to a reading workshop, it's a workshop model, meaning that students are provided opportunities to write in their journals and to express themselves in various writing settings, whether it be persuasive, narrative-based, or explanatory. And a major focus this year, because of the Common Core, we really wanted to incorporate writing that infuses the other disciplines. So one of the things that we started to do was to tie on average science and social studies into their writing. For example, in kindergarten, we developed a unit that ties in their social studies research about the community into their writing. In grades 1, they focus upon science-related topics such as researching about animals, and then in grade 4, developing brochures with New Jersey history. So once again, in order to implement that Common Core, we wanted to bring in the different disciplines together. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Santora.
Hi, everyone. Now we have to go up a little. This slide here, you've seen before. This slide just looks at the changes that happened to our curriculum when the Common Core was implemented. The Common Core is much more rigorous than the New Jersey curriculum. It was implemented in grades K through 2 in September 2011, 3 through 5 and 9, 12 last September, and next year it'll be implemented in grades 6 through 8. What the Common Core really does at the younger grades, it really focuses on number sense. So if you notice, for instance, in grade 5, there's actually 11 standards that used to be at higher grades that have now been moved down to 5th grade. And there's 2 standards that are now in 5th grade that were never in our standards before. So we had to change our curriculum to make sure that we were meeting these new standards. So one of the things that we did in math 5 through 8 was that we consolidated 5th grade math, which means we're only going to have one level of 5th grade math for all incoming 4th graders. There was a few reasons why we made that decision. The first reason was that the fact that the Common Core does not recommend leveling at such a young age level. They really believe that students need to get the foundation for algebra and be able to take their time in learning it and not rush through it to cover more material. So that was our major reason. We still will now have leveling in 6th grade. Just now the students will be leveled at the end of 5th grade using a criteria. We've also updated and realigned our 6th to 8th grade curriculum. So everything's now aligned to the Common Core using the Understanding by Design format. And on a side note, over spring break and then in the summer, I'm actually working for Authentic Education, who created Understanding by Design, as a consultant writing curriculum. All the curriculum I write is copyrighted by them and owned by them, but I'm allowed to use it in the district I'm employed. So I will be introducing 8th grade curriculum that Grant Wiggins has actually given feedback on, who created Understanding by Design, to be able to use with the teachers, hopefully in September. Science K-12. Next Generation Science Standards came out about a month ago. They're national standards, they're aligned to the Common Core. They focus less on, let's say, vocabulary and more on the actual practices of science. A lot of people are using the term engineering, but when we use the term engineering, we don't mean engineering with a big E. They say engineering with a small e, which means it's the art of solving problems, creating solutions, not engineering as the profession. So in order to prepare for these new standards, which we're pretty sure New Jersey is going to adopt, the science teachers read a book called The Foundation for Next Generation Science Standards, and that's actually, the book was the foundation for the new standards. So what we've done is had book discussions and conversations about why have these standards been created and what is their point and how are we going to make sure that we're preparing our students to be successful based on them. Also in Science K-12, we've begun to try to integrate STEM-related activities. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's pretty much a new buzzword. You can hear President Obama mentioning it a lot. So some of the things that we've done is Mr. Wertz, who's our computer science teacher, wrote a grant that was approved by VP, and he'll be introducing robots into his computer science classes. Mr. Burgess and Mr. Russo. Mr. Burgess is the physics teacher. Mr. Russo is our pre-calculus teacher. Together also wrote a grant that was approved by VP, and they're going to create units of study in which the students are learning the material in pre-calculus and actually using it in physics. In January, we also attended the first annual STEM Day at Bergen County College. We took a few students to Bergen County College, and it was a great day. What they did was they put on all different workshops that introduced all different careers in science, and the students were allowed to attend whatever workshops interested them. So it was really a fabulous occasion for the students. We're also going to be introducing next year a new program called Engineering by Design, and Ms. Jewett's going to talk a little bit about that initiative.
Dr. Santor will give you some more details on the program. I just wanted to talk about the structure and how we came to this decision in the district. Right now, we have our current G&T program in grades 1 through 4. Grades 1 and 2, it is a push-in program for math and language arts, and in grades 3 and 4, it is a pull-out program for math and language arts. We have been examining this program ever since I began in the district 4 years ago because we felt that it really wasn't meeting the students' needs. There were problems in terms of identifying students because we don't have very good tools, very accurate tools for identifying students at that age. We have the COGAT that we use, the InView, and we don't even have NJASC scores for the students in grades 1, 2, or 3. It pulls them out of their core math and language arts classes. So some of the students actually feel like it's punishment because they have extra work to do because they're missing the core content. But in terms of looking at the program as a whole, we realize that while it is engaging, the students enjoy it, they enjoy the activities that they get to do, it's not necessarily as effective as it should be in terms of what our current needs are. We haven't really changed that program since it was initially implemented, and when it was initially implemented in our math and language arts classes at the elementary level, every student was doing the same math problems, every student was reading the same book in language arts, every student had the same writing assignment, and that is not the case anymore. The programs that we have put in place and the processes we have put in place inherently call for differentiation. So in math, you have tiered assignments, and you actually have different homework assignments based on how the student's level of knowledge that they displayed in class on the topic. In writing and reading we're just getting to in grades 3 and 4. Writing, we're in our 3rd year of implementation. They are writing at their own ability level. So in terms of at the lower grade levels, they choose the paper that they are going to use in terms of, and what I mean by that is whether, the number of lines that are on the paper in terms of the number of lines at the younger grade levels and the space for the picture. Kindergartners start out with no lines and just a space for a picture, and as they start progressing, there's a wall of paper choices, and they start choosing, okay, one with 1 line, some other students might be up to 2 or 3 lines, and they also choose their own topic. So instead of a teacher saying, everyone write about what you did over the weekend, they learn how to generate topics. And in reading, they are reading to their own ability level. You don't have, you still may have the students, you know, certain books that the whole class is reading, but they are reading at their own specified reading level. So pulling them out for the program that we're doing, again, while the activities are very engaging for the students, it's not as meaningful as it should be in terms of their growth. So we looked at, okay, you know, what needs could we meet in terms of trying to provide enrichment to these students? And we've talked about STEM and talked about trying to infuse, you know, a lot of attention. We give a lot of the attention to math and language arts as it should be at the elementary level, but we don't want to forget the other subjects. So we've been looking at a STEM-based program called Engineering by Design, and it is based all around problem solving. And the students create, invent, solve problems. I don't want to steal Dr. Santora's thunder when she explains the program a little bit more. But what we have decided to do is transition to that type of program, and it's going to be a push-in program. So next year, we will be replacing the current 3rd and 4th G&T program with the STEM EBD enrichment program that will be push-in for all students. And then the following year, we will be putting it in place for 1st and 2nd grade. So 1st and 2nd grade will remain the same next year with their G&T structure. And Dr. Siegel, who is the current G&T instructor at the elementary school, has really been an integral part in allowing this to happen. He is thrilled and excited. He actually initially approached me saying that he believed that the current program we had really wasn't fulfilling the needs of the district. And he was really excited about pursuing something new. And a passion of his is actually science. So we couldn't have had a better fit for this particular program. So we do have training coming up in a couple of weeks. And the program, it's a really, really neat program. We partner with the College of New Jersey. Before I get into all that, I'll have Dr. Santora come up and speak about that.
I almost have nothing left more to say. I was trying to think as you were talking of other things to talk about. But Engineering by Design it's a standard-based national curriculum. It was created by the International Technology and Engineering Educators Association. It follows the Understanding by Design framework. The College of New Jersey partnership with the association. And basically what happened was they got a grant where any school district in New Jersey can use this program as long as we pay for the training. But all the curriculum, all the supplies, they're all free for us to use, and all the support that we need as we implement it. We are also looking to expand this to grades 1 and 2 of the 2014-2015 school year. The students are presented with an authentic problem, and they have to find a solution for it. That's the whole purpose. They're given the supplies. It is differentiated because the students really are not given any guidance. Here's the problem, here's some supplies, figure out how you're going to solve it. I know in 3rd grade, one of the problems is they have to create a dog bath in which the water is recyclable. In 4th grade, they have to create another form of energy, whether it be solar energy, to create a solar-powered battery. So you're looking at students figuring out how to reuse energy, renew energy. So it's actually very, very exciting. I'm going to start this, and then Dr. Vangia will finish. We have a slide here about in-house assessments, and we talk a little bit about social studies and math. But the thing we wanted to emphasize with math is that the math department is currently working to create common assessments, and you'll see in a lot of subjects, especially at the 5 through 8 level and the 9 through 12 level, that teachers are creating assessments together, and it doesn't matter which class your students in, they're going to be assessed the same way, and they're also beginning to plan their lessons together to make sure every student's prepared in the same manner. Dr. Vangia?
As I mentioned earlier, one of the major changes of the Common Core was an introduction of literacy standards for a lot of different disciplines, such as social studies. So what we did in this Verona was decide to incorporate what are called document-based questions in order to address those literacy-based standards. For those who do recall their time in social studies class in high school, a document-based question is a question in which a student is given a prompt in which they have to write an essay using the documents provided to them. So what's so great about DBQs is that it incorporates reading because they have to pull out the main ideas of the primary sources, as well as writing because they have to use those documents in order to support the position for the prompt. And we actually started this last year in grade 7, and we actually expanded it this year all the way up to grades 11. So all students in required social studies classes from 7 to 11 on a quarterly basis have been provided these DBQs, which allow us to really measure how our students are not only looking at it from a historical thinking aspect, but also a literacy-based aspect.
prefer not to hear one of us talk for too long at once, so we try and change it up a little. Teacher evaluation is obviously another big initiative that we have that we are constantly dealing with, but it's specifically become I guess a larger priority in terms of taking up a larger chunk of our time because of the new state requirements with regard to teacher evaluation. And while teacher evaluation is obviously a very important role of a district, I have mixed reviews regarding the state requirements, just because they tend to do things that are one size fits all. So I actually heard somebody say the analogy today of one district gets a cold and everyone needs to take the medicine. But we are really trying to use it to our advantage in terms of strengthening our professional dialogue with our teachers. And really refining the feedback administratively that we give them to make it more consistent and more practical. So what we have focused on this year, obviously there are new regulations from the NJDOE, and I do have a couple presentations online about that. We have selected the Marzano causal teacher evaluation model. It is one of the state approved models, and it's very in line with what we currently do in the district. And we've also purchased the eye observation software to use with it, because you do need a database to house all of the evaluations, as we will be needing to report them to the state and tie them to the NJ Smart submission. We are doing this in partnership with Glen Ridge. So we are sharing a lot of the costs, because we're sharing professional development costs as well as the cost for materials for the professional development. We actually have a session on Friday, our administrators and their administrators, that is part of a 2-day session that will be continued next Friday. And it's worked out very well, because besides the fact that we have seen a cost savings, it's really nice to have another district to collaborate with and to kind of work through the problems and the growing pains with them, since we are both smaller districts with smaller administrative teams. Our DEAC, which is our District Evaluation Advisory Committee, in conjunction with our administrative team, is finalizing our summative evaluation rubric. The state has 4 rating categories that you have to use for every teacher, but they're leaving it up to the district to decide the rubric for determining those categories. So I've been working with our advisory committee and with our administrators to develop that. Our advisory committee has representatives from all different stakeholder groups. We have teachers, we have a parent, we have a board member, we have administrators, and we have a teacher from every single, from elementary, from middle, from high school. So it's actually been a very positive experience working with that group. One of the other areas of focus this year was expand our course selection options for our high school students, and we will be continuing to do that. We are going to be adding discrete math as a 12th grade math option for next school year. We're looking into adding a robotics semester course at the high school. We're actually looking at adding that at the high school as well as the middle school. We really want to try and, computer science is a topic that a lot of students I don't think necessarily know what it is. And they kind of think computer science, well, I'm not really sure I want to do that. Yet when they then hear that, oh, you get to program a robot to move, oh, that actually sounds kind of cool. I think I might want to try that. And a lot of the research shows that if you wait until high school to try and get students interested in that, by that time it's too late. So we are trying to push some of this down to the middle school to expose them to more options. We've added a couple semester courses in our social studies department. We've added economics and Holocaust and genocide this year, and we're going to be rotating those with contemporary issues and history of film, which will be offered next year. What we're trying to do is maximize our capabilities for offering options to students. We obviously are limited because we are a smaller district. We only have a certain amount of teachers in a department, and we can only offer a certain number of courses. So we've semesterized a lot of our electives so that we can offer more, and so also that students will hopefully be a little braver to try an elective that they may not be sure that they're totally interested in, but if they know it's only for half the year, they hopefully will be more inclined to try it out. And we're also starting to rotate them. So what will be, so things will be offered in odd versus even years, so that we can offer more of a selection to students. Our Tomorrow's Teachers course, which is one of the dual enrollment courses we offered this year, has been a huge success this year. And that's a course where students at the high school who are interested in pursuing education as a career, they have a period course here, and throughout the year, they go down, they're placed with a teacher at our elementary or middle school, and then for a period in the spring, they actually go down for several days, for several full days to work with that teacher and even possibly help teaching some lessons. And the feedback from the students and from the teachers they worked with was very positive. And we actually have taken that feedback, and one of the issues was the time constraints for the students being at the other schools. So we're working with their schedules next year to see if we can back up lunch to a study hall to the course to try and give them a larger chunk of time. But those are the types of things we're trying to creatively look at to figure out how we can expand opportunities for our seniors, for our students rather, and specifically for our upperclassmen as well, to really try and, one of our strategies that we're dealing with in the strategic plan, one of the action items is to look at how to make senior year more meaningful. And that's, we're really looking at, all sorts of creative ideas so that, once they get into college halfway through the year, the rest of the year doesn't just become waiting to be done with high school.
We had a lot of exciting changes in world language this year. As many of you do know, that one of the major changes has been the introduction of the Mandarin language at Lanning. As you know, last year a decision was made in order to provide the experience for all our elementary students to be a little more on level with one another. We decided to focus upon Mandarin and Spanish at the elementary levels, meaning that Spanish tends to be the language most kids tend to take when they go up to HEW or the high school, but at the same time we wanted to expose them to a language that may not have as much experience with, personal experience that is, so we decided to expand Mandarin. And from, between teachers, parents, and students at Lanning, it's been an overwhelming success. The feedback has been positive as far as the exposure to not only a new language, but to a new culture that has been quite gratifying. Another major introduction this year for the World Language Department was we decided to go down to the fourth grade students and put on presentations about the various languages that they may not have experience for. So for example, when we went to Forest, we had high school students come who have taken Spanish as well as who have taken French to talk about their experiences and what they were able to walk away with from their program. And when we went to, for example, Brown, we talked about Mandarin, and the kids talked about French because the students currently take Spanish. The feedback from that has been tremendous because now the students are able, with their parents, to make an educated decision as far as what language they want to take when they go up to grade 5 at HBW. Another initiative that we focused upon this year in world language was to create a more streamlined focus of skills in our Spanish program starting in grade 5. Because it's our largest program, we have a number of teachers who teach it, and one of the things we wanted to focus upon was regardless of what teacher a student takes, they have the same experience. So what we worked on this year was creating curriculum maps in order to ensure that those experiences are across the board the same, whether you have one teacher for 5th grade Spanish versus another. And what we're hoping to use these curriculum maps for is to create common assessments moving forward as well as benchmarks. Another change that we wanted to focus upon this year was to emphasize speaking and listening in our classroom skills, because in the target language, it's reading and writing tends to take up a lot of chunk of the time within the classroom setting. So what we decided to, at the high school level, is how could we incorporate more opportunities for the students not only to speak, but also to listen. And we, some of the teachers found on the website that we are now a big member of is called Linked Language. And this website allows our students to engage in listening activities as well as recording activities in which teachers are able to then listen to outside of the classroom setting, so the students are able to get that one-on-one instruction that we're often unable to do in a class size of about 25. And we'll turn it over to Dr. Santora.
We just wanted to take a minute to discuss some additional accomplishments that were not on our list of goals for the beginning of the school year. One is that in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, we have implemented online textbooks. The online textbooks are Envision math textbooks which align to our K-6 program. Basically, we have hardcover textbooks in the classroom. For next year, we'll have a supply of hardcover textbooks in the library, but students are asked to use the online version at home. There are extenuating circumstances, and we make allowances for that. The purpose is the online textbook has tons of options. It has tutorials. It has animated videos in which it actually teaches the lesson to the student, so if the student's absent. It provides formative assessment quizzes, so basically the student can take a quiz and learn how they're progressing in the material. One of the newest features, which is just awesome. Have you ever been on a store website and that little message box pops up, do you need any help, and you can talk to a live person? It has that now. So your student can actually ask a live math tutor for help with their specific problem. So there's so many options. We really want to promote students to actually use it at home. Another reason why we're doing this is that with the new state assessments that are coming out, the national assessments, the PARC, we are going to be testing online. So our math test will be online, and we need to get students familiar with that approach. So math has taken the initiative to start to prepare students for that. The math department at the high school has also established PLCs, which stands for Professional Learning Communities. What that means, in our 4-day cycle at the high school, for one period a day, the math teachers get together in specific groups. There's an Algebra 1 group, a Geometry Algebra 2 group, and a Pre-Calc Calculus group. In the beginning of the year, they got together, we established rules, we established protocols, and then they started with a common goal. So they created a goal for themselves, and then once they finished that goal, they work on a new goal. So one of the first goals that they created was to analyze the summer assignments. So when they went back and they went and looked at how the students did on, let's say, the Algebra 2 summer assignment, which was mostly a review of Algebra 1 and the skills the students needed to be successful in Algebra 2. From that, they then went back to the Algebra 1 teachers and said, hey, listen, based on the research we did, your students did really well in this, but some of them have forgotten this topic, so we can make sure our instruction is really hitting what the students need. Another goal was the Pre-Calc Calculus group looked at how to make students successful in AP Calculus. And one of the results that came out of that was they said, okay, well maybe at the end of pre-calculus we're going to start to introduce a little bit of calculus. Maybe at the end of Honors Algebra 2 we're going to start to introduce a little bit of pre-calculus. So they're changing their orders, they're discussing, they're collaborating together. This is also where the teachers have been working on the common assessments. They've been working on creating common curriculum, making sure that their curriculum aligns to the Common Core. They're researching the new national tests that are coming out, making sure that we're best preparing our students for that. So the teachers have been really using this time to reach some worthy goals. And this is Jared.
These are items that we've also already talked about, but I just wanted to highlight them. We were recognized this year by the College Board on the AP Honor Roll for not only increasing our level of participation, but our level of performance as well. This, we always are very cautious about making too big of a deal when we're put on NJ Monthly's list or Newsweek's list, but this particular recognition recognizes the exact goal we set out to accomplish 3 years ago, where we wanted to increase student participation in AP courses while not sacrificing performance and not getting them in over their heads. And we have, our participation has increased. 4 years ago when I started, we administered 70 AP tests. This year we will be administering 380 AP tests. And our performance rate of 3s or better has increased from 72 to 75%. So that's a pretty good indicator that students, that it was an appropriate choice for these students to make and that they really are now reaching their potential. We've also been steadily closing the gap with the district factor group for our percent partially proficient on the HESPA. We've actually closed the gap by half for the percent partially proficient on language arts and math in the past, since 2010. So what I've put up here is our mission and goals for our new strategic plan that is in the development process. This is all available on the website, but I did just want to highlight this because before I talk about our areas of focus for next year, it's kind of a dual role. Our areas of focus for next year influence the strategic plan development, and the strategic plan development will now continue to influence our areas of focus. So this is our newly adjusted mission, and I won't read this out loud to you. You can view this on our website. The one thing that I'm very pleased with regarding our goals for the strategic plan as compared to the goals for the last one is that every single one of our goals is focused on a student outcome. And I think that's really important because regardless of what we're doing in the district and what the decision is specifically about, whether it's facilities, whether it's finance, whether it's academics, the end result of all of those things is to impact student learning positively. And so our strategic goals really reflect that. So just to briefly look at what we will be continuing to do for next year, there are a lot of the initiatives from this year are continued. So reading K-12 is obviously still an area of focus as we continue to implement the Common Core literacy standards. Writing K through 6, we're continuing to focus on integrating writing across the disciplines. English grades 7 through 12, we're going to be continuing to incorporate informational text into the classroom and expanding student use of nonfiction. Math grades 6 through 8, next year will be the first year of implementation of the new Common Core state standards aligned curriculum. Science grades K through 12 will begin a collaborative study of the next generation science standards. And we are also going to, now we can finally, now that we've gotten our math and literacy programs at the elementary level squared away, we can begin looking at science and social studies programs. And what we are going to be looking at are literacy-based programs for science and social studies in grades K through 5. Social studies K through 12, again, infusion of, I already talked about the literacy-based programs and continue to focus on those document-based questions. In-house assessments, we're going to be looking at developing student growth objectives. That's one of the requirements of the new teacher evaluation model, that every teacher has to develop at least one student growth objective. And that is based on, the growth is based on some kind of rubric or assessment that is utilized within the course. The teacher evaluation model, developing a common understanding and a common language in the district is obviously going to be a continued goal. Continuing to expand course selection options for our high school students, and really looking at assessment in our world language courses so that we really can accurately gauge student learning in all dimensions of the target language. And I think that is it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, just one quick
Sure.
question. So just to kind of synthesize the information, a takeaway would be that we have a process, we have a way to measure that process, those outcomes, and then we have actionable items to do so. And that those three things would be aligned to state, district, and even some granular level of what's happening amongst students in classrooms. Would that be accurate? Or?
Fair assessment? Yes. Okay, thank you.
I might have a couple questions, just some input too.
Sure.
I'm delighted about the STEM implementations. I just want to mention, I don't know if there's a way to go about it, but I started looking at the STEM programs for the summer for my child, and I didn't realize there were a lot of involved applications and deadlines, so I missed this fantastic program at NJIT.
Okay.
There's actually ExxonMobil provides scholarships, so it's subsidized. I believe it's a month-long program, and it nets out to $500 a week, which is really nothing for what they deliver. But I don't know if there's a way to sort of, direct parents.
Get that
What I
information
find
back to
is, and Virginia's been very good about asking me to run articles about what you can do with your child in the summer, because I think a lot of success in education is what we do with the summer months, and that's been agreed, right? But these STEM programs are out there. You probably better insight to where they are.
And if you want to send me the links to the couple that you looked at,
and you can put them on our website.
because just like we do with summer reading suggestions, putting those kinds of things up, I think that's a great idea.
I missed the boat, actually. I was really sorry about the NJIT one, but I found my embryo.
No, I think that's a great idea.
And on the extracurricular, it's interesting, I like the, the Holocaust economics. I was wondering, have you ever dovetailed with guidance and said, what would prime our kids to make their applications more attractive? In terms of extracurricular, what are the universities looking for?
You mean electives? I'm sorry.
When it comes to electives,
Okay.
rather than do a history of film, I would think maybe something that's maybe colleges and universities are more interested in, like leadership, collaboration, seminars, entrepreneurial class, I thought.
Well, the electives are definitely a piece of that, because what we've been trying to do is expand our offerings. We've looked at, a lot of those electives came from looking at what larger schools are able to offer, and then what we did was, because we can only offer a course if students are interested in taking it, so that's how we determined, there was actually, how many original courses have we proposed for social studies, for electives? There was quite a few, about 15 or so, and we surveyed the students to see what they would be most interested in signing up for. This was last year, and so what we did was we took the top 2 courses to offer for this year, and then we took the next 2 to offer for next year.
So it's student input.
But what you're saying is something that is part of actually the strategic plan as well, is looking at how we want to at better steering students towards courses they should take based on what they want to do after high school. So that is actually something that's on our radar.
Or personal finance credit, because that is very important in terms of now, and when they go to college, they borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars, and understanding how that will impact them.
That's actually part of our freshman seminar course. They actually, that's one of those topics in there, because there's a whole, half of the year is on personal finance,
Yeah,
and that is a piece of that.
I know it's becoming that
Yep.
topic. And then finally, is there a point in our line where you can take 2 languages, or is there just never time for that? Like,
Mhm.
in high school, or is that even in the?
We have some students who do it, their junior and senior year, they
Of
usually,
high
of high
school.
school. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, we appreciate what the implementation and the presentation. I think you all often have to stay caught up and run your business at the school and forget, not that we forget, but, lose sight of the fact that, this is what we're here to really do. So it's great to see the results, really encouraging, and, thanks for the hard work.
We appreciate that, thank you very much. And if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to email any one of us. The presentation will be posted tomorrow, but if you have any follow-up questions, my information's on the website. Most of your faces I'm familiar with, so you know how to reach me very easily. We'll be happy to provide any additional information. And I will be back in June to present fully the strategic plan. So June 18th, save the date. I'm going to send out for wedding, save the date. It's going to, Lisa Freshy can tell you what a great process it's been. But you tell all your friends to come on June 18th. Awesome.
Thank you. Nice job.
All right. Building and grounds, or,
Yeah, just a quick update for Building and Grounds. Although we did not meet, just want to update the board and public that the field study that's been ongoing really for the last several months has been completed, and that there'll be representatives from French Corolla, the firm that did the study, at the next board meeting, to present their findings and outline some of the steps that we take. So please come and questions at that time, and we'll answer some of my questions.
yep, and that'll be May 14th, 2013. All right, let's move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Security update. I had another meeting with the chief talking about district security. I also passed on to the chief the posting of the COPS grant. I'm not sure if we're familiar with it in Verona. The COPS grant is a grant that provides towns with SROs. It's a federal grant. It's got a due date of May 22nd, and I've been discussing this. It's really a town grant. The board would be involved as a secondary partner, but not the primary partner, so the town would have to apply. I'm working on that with them to see if they're interested. The grant is, I think, pretty substantial. It's $125,000 a year for 3 years to fund at least one person, but there's a 25% matching cost to the town. And then you have to sign on to say that you keep the person for a year after that. So it's something that I think we should look into, and that's what I'm doing right now with the chief. We're pretty excited about the reverse auction, even though we don't have a lot of meters on that, but the fact that we're gonna save $4,700, it's better than no dollars for some electric over the next 6 months. The corporate sponsorships are picking up. I'm not sure if everybody's following this, but the Cozen partnership has yielded some results. There's a donation to VFI through there. 5 cars were sold in the month of March alone, so there's a $1,000 donation for VFI from there. We also are kicking off this Thursday a new partnership with Bella Gente. So Bella Gente is going to offer 10% back to anyone who goes there every Thursday forever. As long as you write Verona Schools on your check, they will donate 10% back from every check to VFI. So we are taking our administrative assistants there Thursday for Administrative Assistants Day, and we're going to be there to hopefully support this as well. Very excited about the Yankee Camp. The Yankee Camp and the Ivan Nova Camp. I think it's Ivan Nova, actually. He's a pitcher for the Yankees. So the last week of June, we have the New York Yankees official camp on our property, which we will receive. It's going to give us about $5,000 in revenue for having the camp. And the Ivan Nova camp, the Ivan Nova is a clinic. It's a 2-hour clinic we get $500 up front plus $25 for every, $20 for every person who attends. So we're looking at maybe a $2,500 payday there for 2 hours. Plus, we get to bring a New York Yankee to our town to give a clinic, which I thought was a positive thing too. The Blue Planet training that we have scheduled for August 26th, the registration is picking up. It's very nice to see that the local towns are all jumping on board. We have colleges, we have some state assemblymen, we have union people, we have Department of Ed people, local school districts, superintendents, principals, teachers, all coming on August 26th. And I did mention this at the last meeting, but there is a fee for people who aren't invited by me. And that money is going to be turned over to the school as a donation by Mr. Hoopter, who's running this, the Blue Planet training. So that's another positive thing. On June 13th, I set up a meeting with all the local realtors. I think we only have 2 in Verona, so we expanded it to Cedar Grove, Caldwell, West Orange. And I'm going to have a meeting with the local realtors and highlight some of the things in the schools, give them something they can take back to their office to give to people who are coming, looking at houses and thinking about moving to Verona. And I figured they could take away a little pamphlet or something that they can share with their local, with people who come into the office, so they have some facts.
Yeah, we used to have remember the packet, pamphlet 2, 3 years ago that was handed out during, I'll go back to the back. Before that, it was a color during Mr. Sampson's time, when the eighth grade parents came up for the night. I would check with Mr. C. Yeah, about it. You do have a document already outlined, created, just update some of the parts on there, just forget the, who was running it, but we have it, which Mr. C said.
All right. Another thing is we have a partnership with the Verona Cedar Grove Patch, which is an AOL company. Verona Cedar Grove Patch is actually paying $1,000 to advertise on our weekly email. And along with that is a new blog that I'm on, a weekly blog. I'll talk about some issue. Last week I spoke about just the exciting time we're in right now with the things that we're working on in the district. I had an idea for Friday, and I can't believe I forgot. I gotta write it down, but I'm sure it'll come back to me. It'll be something a little different Friday. But I was excited about that. We were able to bring in some revenue and as well, have another public forum for a voice. And I can share that with other people in the district too, if they'd like to take it as maybe as a guest blogger, right? And what was that? Yeah. Insects in the VHS locker room, we did do a clean out over the break, and we're hopeful that is going to fix the problem or correct it or improve the problem. We had our experts here from the extermination company to guide us on how to handle this, so they're on the scene and they're doing the right thing. The plumbing in Verona High School with the bathrooms, we discussed this. We do have open now a working set of bathrooms in the high school. A boys and a girls bathroom with all the fixtures that are currently working. Okay, so that's, believe it or not, that's actually newsworthy, but you would think that wouldn't be newsworthy, but it is. I met with our people from Dome Tech today. That's the engineering firm we hired to conduct the local government energy audit. It kicked off today. He's going to spend some time in the building. He said he'll be in the buildings. He said that we will have the report back, I believe he said 8 weeks. So within 8 weeks, we should have their recommendations on what types of things we can do to improve efficiency that will give us some funds to fund a big project. Like, I'm not going to stick to this, but maybe some heating issues in the high school may be able to be addressed through this local government energy audit. So that's what we're working on right now. I thought that was a positive thing. This we really have to get out. We need to get this out to the public. I'd love to have your help in the audience doing this. I'm going to put it out myself. But I'm very excited to say that tonight on their agenda, the board is going to approve a new agreement with Caldwell College. And we're going to be able to offer 2 college courses on our campus this summer. So students in the high school that are current sophomores, juniors, or seniors may enroll in these courses in our high school, come to our campus, and they will take a class with our staff. One is the Vietnam War, the other one's general psychology. The cost will be approximately $500. With the $500, you get high school and college credit. If you choose only the high school credit, the cost is going to be $200. The reason that there is a fee is because it's outside of the school year, and we have to pay the teacher. It's a different class. It's not something we're doing during the school year.
Steve, is that what we did last summer?
Yes, but we only had 1.
Yeah.
Now I have 2, which I thought was pretty exciting. We had the same class. We had the Vietnam War, which was the one that ran.
We didn't have enrollment issues at the end, or?
No, we had the 10 that we needed.
We did, okay.
Yep, we had the 10 that we needed. So we have the Vietnam War through Colwell College. We also have the general psychology class through Colwell College. So I thought that was a pretty nice plus. I hope the residents and the parents push this for their students. I know it sounds like a lot of money, $500, because it's $500. But if you went to Colwell College and took the class there, it would be $2,100. So even though it's an expense out of your pocket, it's still, it's a big reduction in cost. And we are going to do something this year a little bit more flexible. We're going to have about a 70-30 split from actual regular coursework to online coursework, which will allow some people to have a little bit more flexibility, which we thought was important. So some of the coursework will not be face-to-face contact. Another very positive thing, considering most students are now taking some online courses in college, so we're going to expose them to some type of an online course. And since this was my thing, everybody knows it was my thing last year, I went in there a lot. And I bought the kids breakfast, sat around talking to them about what they thought about it, listened to their feedback. And I can tell you that it was as close as you're going to get to a college class, not in a college, that I've ever seen. It's really an interesting thing. I'd love to have people come in and just look at it.
And what grade level is that going to be open to again?
10th, 11th, and 10th, current 10th, 11th, and 12th.
So going into 11, going to 12, and graduating.
Right.
So you could feasibly pick up 9 credits before you graduate the high school?
Well, this summer you can pick up 6.
But, in the future, kids could really create a bank. Here's what I love about it. I don't know if you've done this, but
I have that on my
the
list of
best
stuff.
semester I ever had in college, grade point wise, was when I went to 12 credits. Because
Right.
when you're taking 15, and if some of them are challenging, your odds of getting a 4.0 are almost no. But when you drop down to 12 on tough curriculum, you do really well. And also, I always worked throughout college, so if you're going in with a bank of credits, you can take fewer credits, work, make some money while you're in school. There are a lot of nice advantages to starting, I think, ahead of the curve with 6 credits in the bank instead of, I see a lot of seniors that I teach at St. John's, they're hitting the last semester, they're taking 18 credits or whatever because there was a semester they dropped down, they dropped a class, they were about to get they took something pass-fail, they couldn't, something like that. So it's huge advantage to go
Well, the
into
feedback I
college.
got from all this was that you don't really finish early, you just finish on time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the other ones where, it's not uncommon for somebody to need an extra semester, or maybe even an extra year, or have to really do what you're saying, and, jam 21 or 18 credits in.
Absurd, yeah.
Whereas now, maybe you go in and maybe you just graduate in 4 years. So, it's a positive.
Do you have a sense that the credits are universally accepted?
They're not universally accepted, definitely not. That's a definite. There are a lot of schools that will not take them.
schools.
We have a list of the, so I'd love to talk about this because this is definitely something that, I've been big on since I got here, my interviews, everything, right? So, can I get to that question in a minute? Because I have a list of stuff I wanted to talk about. So, very excited about having Colwell College because we have, a school that's a mile away, our high school graduation is there. We do a lot of things with it. I'm on a committee there, they advertise on our website, we do a lot with them. So we're gonna offer 2 classes, but I'm very happy to say that now students in our school can get up to 19 college credits from these dual enrollment classes. As of next year, students can get 3 credits from Syracuse because our Accounting 2 class will be through Syracuse University. Our Careers in Education class, 4 credits is from FDU. Our regular senior English from Seton Hall is 3 credits that's for every kid. NJIT does our computer science class. Colwell does the 6 for the 2 classes I just talked about. So, right now, we have about 19 credits where kids can do it. Now, obviously, they have to take all of it. It's a lot of work. It's not, this is not like for every kid. It's definitely not. I can make a strong argument why you wouldn't want to do it, just as I would say why there is a reason that you would want to do it. Getting to your question now, the reason why I wanted to say this first is because your question is a loaded question due to the fact that it's different from each one of those schools. So, the Syracuse credits, there was a study. This is the longest dual enrollment program. It goes back to the 70s. There was a study done sometime in the somewhere around 2005, something like that, that showed that about 90% of the time those credits were transferable. Now, a lot of it has to do with, there's so many factors. One simple thing could be like if you take a class if you take a very specific major in NJIT, like say you're going to go into chemical engineering, and you took this general psych class, you may not be able to fit it in. That's possible. There's another thing is, like the Ivy League schools and places like that, they don't take any of it, so they're never going to take it. So those are a couple different factors that are involved. Obviously, the grade in the class is going to be another factor. But from what I've heard from people that talk to me, like for example, I'll give you an example of just a run-of-the-mill case. I know somebody who had 30 credits from Seton Hall going into school and was able to transfer them to University of Delaware. So they were able to take all 30 and transfer them into
From high
university.
school?
Yeah, from high school.
That's 2 years.
That's a year.
That's
It's a
a year,
year.
sorry.
Yeah, it's a year of school.
This must-
Right. But the reason why it's hard to say is because it's there's so many variables, right? Now I'll give you another example. As a high school principal, this was my baby then too. So I came in, I'm sitting in the guidance office and I watch how the guidance counselors have getting a hard time from Stevens about selecting, taking a credit. I said, get on the phone. I give him the phone. So I get on the phone. I said, tell me why it's not good. Like explain it to me. So a couple minutes later, they said, okay, we'll accept it. So that's another factor is how hard are you going to push them to take the credits? They want to say no because obviously they want the money too. But if you push them, and you're persistent, you have a shot at getting it. So I think all those factors mixed together, we do. No, it's just such a complicated question. And I want to make sure everybody knows that not every time people are going to take these credits and they're going to be accepted. But the other side is, think about it, now you're taking a college class, so when you submit your transfer. Right. Right.
I think it just comes back to a mission statement, being college and career ready, or having a thoughtful plan for after graduation, or an actionable plan for after graduation. I mean, beyond whether it's accepted, beyond the cost, whatever, all those other factors, I really believe it aligns to what we seek to do here for public schools.
So that's an exciting thing. We have, another thing is, I like to show how some of this stuff is working. I joined the North Essex Chamber of Commerce as a district. It costs $200 to join. And I joined the Verona Chamber of Commerce. I go to the meetings. I don't go to everything, but I go to as much as I can. I have 2 events this week. And I network with businesses and things like that. So it's important to know that we put out $200, but what do we get in return? So from that, I made connections with Chiton, who is one of our big sponsors, and I just signed them to another deal for $8,000. So we paid $200. The connection I made brings us back $8,000. I also, which I think is a very nice thing, is that Chiton offered our a graduating senior for this year a $1,500 scholarship. So we lay out $200, we get back $1,500 in a scholarship for one of our students. That's actually funded by Chiton and the North Essex Chamber of Commerce. And we never had these before because we weren't a member, and now we're a member, so we're getting some of this back. And then from the Verona Chamber of Commerce, I made my connection to DeCosin. And DeCosin has, for example, DeCosin is sponsoring tomorrow night's baseball game. They gave the baseball parents $1,000. They gave the football team $2,000. And they're giving VFE $200 a car. So sometimes some of these things, it's important for you to see that even though it's a small fee of $200, there is a return on investment. Hopefully a lot more than $200. Another thing I'd like to just mention is that on your agenda today, I'd like to mention donations. Is that the SCA is donating from Lanning donating the cost of 2 benches in honor of Mr. Albano, who's put in his retirement. And the SCA is on the agenda for that to be approved tonight. That's it. Sorry, it was a little long, but it's a little over.
No, it's a good topic. Let's spend some time on
Thank you. Let's move on to resolutions.
Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 1 through number 4.
it. So moved.
Second? Oh, is there a second? No, I call for a second. I don't call for a second. So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Elliott, second by Mr. Polino. I got it. I won't crack this car. Any comment? Okay.
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Block? Aye. Mr. Polino?
Yeah.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Resolved that the board approve resolutions number 5 through number 10.
I'm going to request that we vote on number 6 separately.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Elliott, so, seconded. Man, really off tonight. Easiest part of the night. Seconded by Mr. Block, wow. Any comment?
Okay.
So we're voting on,
We're voting on
5.
5, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Block? Aye. Mr. Polino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Okay, resolved that the board approve resolution number 6.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Elliott, seconded by Mr. Block. Any comment?
Yes, I have to admit that this discussion should have been had at the last meeting when this policy came before the board on first reading. But I wasn't apparently paying attention to business as far as I was concerned. I'm troubled by the policy that is in front of us for a couple of different reasons. Even though it's not an awful lot different than the policy that's presently in our policy book, I'm not so sure that it does mirror the policy that existed before we went through a mass change of policies about 5 years ago. What bothers me most, frankly, is the fact that one of the linchpins of our education philosophy here in Verona has been the fact that we do provide and adhere to neighborhood schools. And also, when we've had some problems with specific students in specific schools, we've always said to the parents that, well, we've always been a district of choice, that you can unilaterally decide to move your student from one school to another school, provided there's space available in the school that you want to go to. Yet the policy doesn't address that specifically, either of those two issues. There's nothing in this policy that says that we have neighborhood schools. What it does say, pupils shall generally attend a school located in the attendance area of the residence. Well, that to me, generally attend does not indicate that we are dedicated to the neighborhood school system. Nor anywhere in here does it say that the parent has the choice of moving a student from one district to another, from one school to another. It talked about something about possible volunteers to move first. So I'm troubled by some of the language that is in here, not so much the language that is here. And the fact that it, to me, seems to be a little too liberal in terms of allowing exceptions to standards that we have upheld for a very long time, and one of which was a subject of quite a bit of controversy about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. So I would like to see us table this motion as put one, and perhaps spend a little bit more time talking about it if there's anybody on board that feels the same way that I do. Nowhere in here does it say that we are dedicated to neighborhood schools, and nowhere in here does it say that the parent has a school choice option. And I'm bothered by that. So I can't vote for this policy as it exists. I would like to see it return to the board for discussion as opposed to voting on it tonight.
I get, you know, we discussed this briefly before, I guess I'm okay voting on it tonight, because I'm not certain that language belongs in policy. I think that, you know, that's a mission statement, and that's, something that, when you talk about dedicated to, as opposed to, implementation. I just feel that it doesn't really change what we're doing, it just gives us ability to be, flexible, to the needs of the district if it's required. I mean, I'm not committed to this either one or the other, but I can certainly go on this tonight.
Should we explain a little bit of it, of the purpose of it to the public?
Where does this stand with spouse testing?
Spouse testing.
I don't
We can
know,
discuss
tabling it, I would probably vote for it, but we can talk about it.
It's definitely not an emergency,
It's not urgent,
it's
so
still
let's look at
April.
that.
I'd like
If
to have
you want
it
to
passed
table
back.
it, Steve, I mean, that's fine with me,
Yeah.
it's not an issue for me.
If I have the right to table, I'll table it. I don't know, I think you guys have to table something.
I would make a
agree with
motion.
it. I'll table it, too. We'll talk about
We
it.
can table it, but I would like to have this finalized by the end of the
Sure.
month, because it's.
Yeah, we have to have this done by some.
Yeah.
But it's
Well, I mean, by
also
then.
just for incoming transfer pupils, because down here it says incoming transfer people. So is this only with regard to an
No, it's
incoming
both.
transfer?
Here's, if you want me to explain why we have it, so that everybody's on board, I know you, I think you guys do, but, what was that?
Table it and
Okay.
address it.
All right, I would make a motion to table this resolution at this point in time.
Yeah.
Need a second.
Second.
I'd like to hear why we have it. Public comment, you can ask that question. That's coming up like
In a second.
2 minutes.
So moved
You
by
have to come up to here.
Mr.
that's
Polino and seconded by Mr. Watt.
Okay.
Any comment?
Mr. Elliott?
So the vote is on tabling. the motion.
Tabling,
Okay,
yes.
fine, that's fine.
Aye. Mr. Polino?
Yes,
And Mr. Hughes?
Aye.
thank you.
Resolve that the board approve co-curricular resolutions 11 and 12.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Elliott, seconded by Mr. Polino. Any comment?
Yeah, this is the substance abuse policy, the long-awaited substance abuse policy. But it refers to the code of conduct. Have we approved the code of conduct policy? So what bothers me about this is that we're approving this policy with a very key element being that its relation to the code of conduct policy, but yet we don't have a code of conduct policy.
Well, the code of conduct is a regulation.
Do we have the regulation?
Remember we were talking about last time, we're ready to do it, it's just the next step.
Well, I would like to see the two move together, since, I mean, how can I vote for this now if I don't know what the code of conduct policy is, and it says in here, one of the major factor of this was taking the punitive element out of the substance abuse policy and moved it into the code of conduct policy. And that's what this says, something about students being returned to school and will be subject to the school code of conduct. But we don't have a school code of conduct regulation or policy.
Well, we do have a code of conduct, we're just gonna.
But does the code of conduct have punitive measures that this would relate to?
Yes, it needed to be updated due to the Indian Hills case. Basically, what we wanted to do was,
Yeah, but that was the key to the whole thing. I mean, we went through that whole subcommittee.
that's still not decided on, it's in the Supreme Court right now.
Yeah, but I don't think, we said, or the recommendation of that committee was, that let's change our policy regardless of what the court does, because we didn't think it was, first of all, the community didn't think it was fair, nor did the committee didn't think it was fair through the committee. So we're almost, it's irrelevant what that court decides, that the objection to that policy was substantial enough for us to want to change our code of conduct policy to reflect the objection to the Indian Hills Code of Conduct. So whether or not the court upholds that or doesn't uphold it, I think we want to go to in that direction and move away from a 24/7 policy.
Right.
So I just don't know how we can change this policy to reflect something that it doesn't yet exist.
I agree with you with draft yet.
There is
We
the
have a
draft,
current
there
Yeah,
is a
I
draft,
know,
we have
but
a
we-
current one.
Yeah, but the code of conduct is not in compliance with the objections that the committee had. So now we're approving this to be in compliance with a policy that the committee said they didn't like.
Well, that part's already in here. It was always, you always have this part that it's as per the code of conduct. It's just.
No, I didn't say that. We had, in the substance abuse regulation,
There's a small wording that I worked on with the Strauss Esme attorney, that, to just add that one line in there, because the other thing just didn't even mention it, just said the person can come right back. If you're found.
Did not the substance abuse policy have a whole box in it? I mean, it didn't, and that's what we're taking out. I mean, the regulation did, the policy did not, the
The
regulation.
policy did not, it's a regulation.
Regulations.
Why don't we tackle this all together? I mean, the goal is to have it in place for September. Well, I don't know why we're putting this before.
This
we
came
have
through
it.
athletics. Athletics
No, I know.
have to move on it.
But I'm just saying, it just would make more sense to have all this together before the end of the year, because the goal is, I know I've been asking for that, I just wanted to see something for the year, but,
I'm gonna table you tonight. I'd like to
No,
table
that's
this.
all.
That's how we're gonna
No, I agree.
Okay.
So you want to move?
Move table.
Second?
Resolution number 6. Is it number 6?
11.
We already did 6.
Moved by Mr. Polino, seconded by Ms. Dubois.
Yep.
Any comment?
Give you that comment.
Oh. Yeah, so let's send the draft out of committee to,
You have that draft, right?
we just reviewed already, so just send it out to the board for 14th. We'll do a first reading then.
Well, let's do a discussion then, for sure, because I don't want to do this again. It's all table.
You want to do, that
I
would
think
be,
that would be a good
three
idea. I
weeks
mean,
out.
such a controversial policy, I think that we would put before us to discuss first before we even have to vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll give ourselves 2 weeks before the end of the year to approve it, just so we're aware. And make sure everyone can make those meetings. I don't want to put anyone in a position to not be there on the policy that we're not, if we do discuss it.
But this is a regulation, the regulation is different.
No.
And
Yeah.
some regulations, actually, the majority of regulations don't need to be board approved. And I gotta look to see if the change, if the code of conduct is one of the ones that the board needs to approve. Personally, I think the code of conduct should be approved, even if it's not legal, even if it's not legal. So it can be done in one meeting, it doesn't have to be done the other way. I just don't wanna have it where there's confusion. I don't mind, I think, so I
That's why
think for the 14th, at the work session, we talk about it.
Yeah.
And whatever issues there are right at that point,
Right.
we make the changes that we all agree on, right in public.
Right.
And then on the 30th is the first reading, or whatever, the second meeting of May. Is that good?
Yeah, fine.
And just to be clear, if you change something in the substance use policy, it's not gonna change the code of conduct, because they're mutually exclusive.
That's what the goal was.
Yeah.
Because that's where we were having, remember how the
It's
whole
just like
thing came back with the.
It's so critical. I mean,
No, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying that this refers back to it, so even if, once we look at, I mean, yeah, doing it in tandem, I understand, just to be clear though, that when we look at, if we change something in code of conduct, it isn't gonna it should not impact the substance abuse policy, because they were designed to be separate
I
unto
agree
themselves.
with
Yeah,
that, but
okay.
it's hard to approve a policy that refers to something that we think needs change.
I think it would provide context to each other.
Well, the reason why we're doing it this way is just because out of that committee there was discrepancies. And we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to have contradictory language in two different things. That was the whole point of pulling everything out.
It would be good to see we put them together.
Which is fine, so it won't be on the agenda, it'll be on the agenda for a discussion.
Okay.
So for next week, we'll put on the agenda for a discussion, the regulation for the code of conduct and the policy for substance abuse will be a discussion item.
We could do it through committee discussions too. I
Yeah,
mean,
but we already did, we could do it again if you want, but it's
No, I think
already.
we discussed it before. I think we
Yeah,
discussed it.
committee's already gone through.
Okay.
You want to do it again?
No, let's just get to the board. No problem. That would be appropriate.
Want to vote on this then?
We are.
We're voting
Mr.
on
Elliott?
the motion
Mr.
Aye.
Elliott? Ms. Dubois? Mr. Bolino?
Yeah.
Mr. Yunus?
I'm gonna abstain.
And then resolve that the board approve resolution number 12.
So moved.
table.
So moved by Mr. Lino, seconded by Mr. Elliott. Any comment?
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Block? Mr. Polino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye.
Resolved that the board approve finance resolutions number 13 through 20. Well, you know, let's include the addendum too. So, finance resolution number 13 through, I'll renumber it to resolution 24.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Mr. Polino, seconded by Mr. Elliott. Any comment?
Mr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Block? Mr. Polino?
Yes.
Mr. Yunus?
Aye. All right, let's move on to public comment. Come on up. Yep, now's the time. And just state your name and address.
Just name and address.
Hi, Veronica Guy, I'm a resident. I just had a question about, I think it was resolution 6 that was tabled and what the reason for that was, or
What the reason for is tabling or what it is?
what it is.
The policy is on assignment of pupils to schools. We have neighborhood schools. Sometimes what happens is you go to, in one school, they might have say they have one second grade class with 27 kids. 27 kids, we might say is too big for one class, so we split it. Now you have a class of 14, a class of 13 in one school, but on the other side of town, you have two classes of 22. So the policy was going to give the superintendent, which is me, obviously, the power to say, you know, we're going to have to move you to a different school because, number one, it costs a lot of money to split the class, but number two, it does create a big inequity from class sizes of 13, 14 to class sizes of 22, 23. So it's a practice that we've already been doing, but what this was just to make sure that our policy was in line with our practice. We didn't want to have a practice that was contradictory to what the policy said.
Anyone else?
My name is Joseph DeVivo, 26 Laurel Court, Verona, and I've been a resident in Verona for 15 years. And I've slowly seen a small incremental decrease in our academics as opposed to what we've been when I first moved here. I look at our SAT scores, and you can spin all the numbers you want and so forth, and I think the administrators that were here have only been here for 3 years, so they need time to stem the tide that's been happening over the last 12 years. Also with our administrator who I believe is trying to do a lot of things with a lot of different items, which unfortunately you came into, and I think you're doing a great job so far. But I see things like numbers you can't argue with, like SAT scores. We're 45% of our SAT scores. If you look at the New Jersey report card that came out, we're a lagger in almost everything in our peer group. We are a lagger. We're at the bottom 2 or 3% of our peer group. I know they changed the peer group based on lunch and all other criteria, but previous to that, we were a nice school district and we were lower there too. Our SAT scores are 45% over 1,500 scores, as our peer groups are 67 and 70%. We've gone incrementally down from 2008 until now, from 60% of our students passing over 1,500 to now almost 45%, and that number keeps going lower and lower. The policies that they were speaking about, which are noble and are, hopefully I have confidence that they will be moving forward and being implemented, they're not implemented at the granular level. And a lot of the things that they're trying to implement are not being, I don't want to say pushed, but there's a lot of good teachers that we have, and there's some other teachers that aren't that good, and they're not pushing that curriculum that they're speaking about. So they do all this great work, and they say this, that, and everything else, but you look at all of our scores, and you can say, well, that particular math is counted this way, and the numbers you can skew any way you want. But when you look at the granular numbers of SAT, and you look at our reading, math, and our writing, you see them going down. And we significantly lag our peer group. And I heard a comment at the last board meeting that, well, you know, our peer groups, they move this around, and now we're being compared to, you know, Alpine and Rumson and things like that. Well, we are also compared to Cedar Grove, Rutherford, Hanover Park, and a couple other schools that are the same demographic with the same household income like New Providence. And all these particular schools are moving forward. Now, if you want to say that we've kind of stayed the same and we tread water, you can make that argument. But everybody else is rocketing forward past us, and we're just staying the same. When you come to our other things with academics, our facilities. I mean, if you look at Verona's facilities, you would think we're not an I district, we're an F district. Look at this particular computer room. This is a terrible facility with a town that is somewhat of an affluent town. We're not a very rich town, we're very down-to-earth people. We spend a lot of money on education and it's not getting implemented. We need to put some type of money aside to upgrade our facilities. Forget the football field, we should make that a parking lot and make a different idea of what we should do on the lower field. Because there's no way we're gonna wait around 3, 4, 5 years to $200,000 and $400,000 worth of studies when that should just be a parking lot. You look at our music room. We have a regional band that is tremendous and gives great recognition to our town. And unfortunately, when you go into that particular music room, it looks like it's from the 1950s. It's terrible. You look at our schools, I love the neighborhood thing and everything like that, but our 4 grammar schools average less than 200 students per school. That is it's an enormous waste of money. If you had 2 schools with 350 students in each school, you'd be able to save a lot of money on the cost. I remember Mr. Bellino saying that, I don't know if the number's correct, but somewhere around $130,000 to $140,000 per school to start those schools every year. We have our gym here that doesn't have a heating system, and we had to cancel a couple of our games because there was no heat for anyone to compete. Our stands, every facility in this place is not the standards that we need it to be. We can do better. We can do better academically, we can do better with our facilities, and we can do better implementing all these strategies, which sound very good on paper, but have to be implemented in order for them to work and for our students to get the best. And lastly, I want to say, when we look at our budgets, when you keep cutting budgets, obviously you can't cut teachers because we need the teachers to teach. But you have to be able to have compassion for the taxpayers, but you also have to be able to say, taxpayers, I know you don't have students in this school, but we should have an open house and let them walk through these schools and tell us that this is acceptable. There's no way that a resident of this town who invests money in this town, who buys a home in this town, who stays here for 10, 15, 25 years, can say that these are adequate facilities based on the type of town we are and the amount of money we spend on taxes. Thank you very much.
To your point, I mean, I would like to thank you for your candor. I think a lot of things you said, some of the board members share that sentiment. I think when you see the budget and you realize how little discretionary money is left, one of the things we're working on currently is a bond issue. We absolutely need extra funds to bring it to modernize us as we see fit. So thank you. I've looked at those scores. I last year questioned the SAT decline as well. Now it's the second year. I'll be happy to have that conversation again because 2 years in a row it becomes a trend. It's not an aberration. And I really don't like when we debate this district factor stuff. Okay, it's, if we were at the top of the list, we'd be saying how great we are. So I don't want to hear we're in the bottom of the list. Well, it's because they play with the district factor. 2 student difference makes a difference. Well, we're not at the top. So you can't use that to dig yourself out from the bottom, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. There are a lot of things you said I agree with, and believe me, in confidential session, a lot of this stuff comes up. So thank you. I wish there were 1,000 people in Verona like you who are as interested and as observant and as articulate about it, because what's happening is, we have these meetings, and we usually see, a very interesting group of people come, but, we get much more attendance when we're giving out varsity letters. We're talking about, an issue that, it's a highlight issue, it's a hotbed issue, but about the actual performance of our district and caring about it. It breaks my heart that more people aren't as upset. My child's in the same district, and I get upset, and I say, am I going to be able to send my son to Verona High? I'm not really sure. And I sit on the board, and I don't mean that as a disrespect to our superintendent, who I chose, and I support 100%, but when I walk through this building, this is not at all the education I was afforded, and it breaks my heart to tell my son, this is your high school, because I had better. So I want better for my son, and I know you will do too. So tell your neighbors that it's important for them to articulate these things, because we need their support. If we ask for more money to do stuff, and we come back and we lose, for example, the last time there was a referendum that lost by 6 votes. Now, I understand there's a big expense for a football field, and I might have voted against that too, but next time when this comes up and we're looking to do massive capital improvements, if it gets voted down, we're dead in the water. We can't do it. And we can't upgrade, for example, the wireless. We can look into do that. That's a basic, right? We have it at Starbucks. We don't have it here at a high school, but we're trying. So, get the word out that you get the school, it's like de Tocqueville said, Americans will get the government they deserve, Veronans will get the schools they deserve. If they take an active interest and they're articulate and they lobby for this, they'll have it. So it'll get done, right, Steve?
You made a lot of great points, and these are things I've been talking about. I think that it needs to be pointed out that It's not normal for a town like Verona to have the football field closed, the gym that you have to be closed because it's 50 degrees, the track is closed. I got an email, I got a text today from the tennis coach saying that the net's broken, they're not gonna be able to have their state game there. You know, I went to the tennis match the other day, I saw a kid, and this has nothing to do with the student, with blue stripes on his shorts. And obviously I'm saying, why do you have blue stripes on your shorts, in my head? So I asked, we don't give shorts. If you don't give shorts, we can't tell you what kind of shorts to buy. So, you know, it's very nice to have a lowest budget and talk about all that stuff. It's great. And I did some data analysis from the last report card, and I looked at cost per pupil. Now, we use a different comp group. We've been using the same comp group for 12 years. I mean, same group of 12 schools for several years before I got here. Park Ridge, you got Park Ridge, you got Kinnelon, you got Cedar Grove, you have Glen Ridge on there. Caldwell, I use those. New Providence, Madison, I use those. There's 12. Our cost per pupil is 12 out of 12 in every category except two. One of the categories is we're about 7th out of 12 in supplies, and we were 11th out of 12 in athletics. But every other one we were 12 out of 12. So, I mean, it's a great stat. If you could walk around saying, look, we're 12, we have the lowest cost per pupil, it's a great stat. When you're giving everything, like the shorts for the tennis team and the dirt for the football, for the softball field and all that, I get that. So, I think the academic part, I think that we're on the right track, and I think that you said some important things in the beginning. I think that this is not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's something that builds from the bottom. And I believe we're on the right track in that direction. I really do. And we do put our funds into that. So the athletic budget hasn't increased in a few years, but our academic budget has. So we're putting some money into that. But I mean, I think that the time has come where we have to say, like, enough's enough. This is not, you know, what we would want for this town. Like, you wouldn't expect it to have all these facilities that aren't working. And I really do appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, I'm finishing my 10th year on the board. Many of the points that were just brought up have been an issue in this district for 10 years. We talked about SAT scores, we talked about comp groups being, in terms of, comparison of academics. One of the things that we thought was going to help correct the problem was establishing the position of director of curriculum, which we've done. So it's not for a lack of trying, because we have, over the course of the 10 years that I've been on this board, known of the deficiencies or our situation in terms of comparison to any other group, whether comp group or whether it's an old comp group or new comp group. And frankly, I don't know, the results haven't come our way. So it's not for a lack of trying. I mean, we spend all of those ladies that came here today were not on staff 10 years ago when I got there. There was no curriculum director. There weren't even any supervisors. There were supervisors, but they had different functions. And yet, we still don't seem to be making the push that we've had hoped for. You know, I don't know what the answer is. You're the education leader of the district, and these people are your subordinates and help us along the way. I don't know where we go from here. As far as facilities, we're totally aware of the situation on facilities. In fact, if you look at what we have done over the course of the last 10 years, is passing the referendum in 2005. It's a $33 million referendum, which made a huge difference in our facilities. If you look at our middle school today, the way it is today as the way it was 6 years ago, it's almost not even the same building. And that referendum passed by 10 votes. 10 votes passed that referendum. So grateful for the 10 people who voted yes to put us over the top. But we're going to come out with another referendum, and within a year, probably within about 10 months. It's not going to be anywhere near $33 million, but it's going to be in the neighborhood of probably 10 to 12 million. We haven't even defined that yet. And we hope that the community understands the situation. We, you know, whether there is an athletic field in that or not it remains to be seen, but we have a facility behind this high school that we can't use. And if we don't fix it, it won't be able to be used, we've heard, for the next 99 years. So we've got to do something with it. We can't make a parking lot out of it. We have to fix the problem. And it's not for a want of trying or a want of effort, because the effort's been there, but the results don't come our way. And that's a mystery and to all of us sitting on the board. And it has been since I've been on this board.
Thank you yeah, that's, so just to close out this comment really quickly, thank you, Joseph, for your input. Having been a student in the school and now on the board, I just want to balance and end the conversation for now, because we're at a place where we do need to do that. And to the community, it's not as simple as when we find a sinkhole just to pave over it. And I think anyone would agree that that's not the most responsible thing to do. Aligning $30 million every year to drive forward in excellent education isn't as simple as writing a check. And I think it's just really important to keep in mind that when, and with all due respect to those who spoke tonight, that we are seeing writing scores move and reading scores move, and this will take time. But in the grades that they've been implemented, these changes have happened. Test proficiency is at an all-time high, and we need to continue to push forward. So thank you for your comments, and we're going to take the next comment from the public.
I'm sorry, I have one more thing to clarify on that.
Really? Yeah.
And the last thing I want to clarify on that is the fact that you brought up those buildings and grounds issues, every one of them is already in the plan for correction. So these are things on our radar. Just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah, so if you have more comments, I'd recommend talking to Ms. Jouet, or Buildings and Grounds Director, and then they can definitely point you in the right direction to any of those concerns that you might have. Anyone else with comment? You gotta go more? Come on.
State your name and address.
My name is Anthony Cheche. I'm not resident of Verona. I live at 3150 Boulevard in Newark, New Jersey, on the borderline of Belleville. I've been an educator for many years, Italian and Spanish. It came to me that there are certain districts in New Jersey, of course, I wanted to see where there is I always had a long row of Italian American people or residents in the community. And we have found that Verona, among other districts that I think one of our guests spoke before, like Rutherford and a few others in North Arlington, which there is not an Italian program. I would just say, of course, being that Verona has a sizable amount of Italian Americans, that perhaps the board will, perhaps in the future, will take into consideration a possibility of offering Italian in their schools. I see you have Spanish, Mandarin, I believe, and French, and perhaps maybe Italian may be something that you would like to consider in the future. I know budget cuts, of course, the board have been a big issue. However, maybe something to take into consideration and probably to get a little more thought about.
Thank you.
So our next meeting will be, public meeting will be on May 14th at 8 p.m. and French and Perillo Associates will be discussing the assessment results for the Thomas Lido football field at that time as well. Thank you and have a great evening.